Well, and obviously in your case and in many of the current events cases we've seen, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about financial institutions, stuff like that. How do business ethics and personal ethics correlate between each other? What kind of crossovers do you see there? How could this apply to somebody's personal life and the moral decisions they have to make?
Well, it's interesting. Last week I was speaking to a group of people. It was an international construction company. And a question similar to that came up. And people were like, okay, well, there's business ethics. Well, business ethics is the choice that Northeast State perhaps might make, saying this is a pattern of behavior that's acceptable to us. Or the company that I was speaking with, this is a pattern of behavior that works for us. Those might be the standards, but business ethics is still driven by individual choices. So let's use Toyota. Not to pick on them, because I drive a Camry and really like it. Sure. And have had no unintended acceleration. But the fact is, some guy somewhere had written a memo. And the memo several years back said, wow, I am really good. I know we've had some challenges with acceleration, but we believe we've isolated it and we have avoided a major recall. That has saved us millions of dollars. And with that memo, it was almost the proverbial pat on the back. Look, I did good. We were able to save money, improve our quarter, drive the bottom line. I need the accolades. Today, I would wonder if the guy's employed, because that memo, at the time, which seemed ethical, has turned out to become the smoking gun that says to the automaker, perhaps you weren't truly interested in the safety of the product that you were selling, you were more interested in the bottom line. So an individual's choice could have a dramatic impact on a business's ethical perception and the perception of the consumers in the marketplace.
That's a very interesting point you make. So you could say personal ethics drive business ethics.
Absolutely. The individual choices. There's never a circumstance where a business fails ethically without individuals having made a series of choices that were ethical lapses or failures. Now, they may not think at the time that what they're doing is wrong or inappropriate. Enron's another example. There were people clearly there that thought that they were driving the value of that company when in reality they were hiding the truth and the reality from the consumer, and ultimately, again, it had a disastrous effect. But Enron didn't fail. People made choices within that organization that caused it to fail.
Okay. Well, you recently wrote a book called Second Chances. Do they exist? Are they applicable to people who have made these kind of personal ethical slips?
Well, absolutely. The book Second Chances talks about the experience that I had, but it also hopefully helps people see the framework from taking an adverse situation and creating opportunity from it. And that to me probably is one of the most significant things that can take place. Many people will have made a choice in their life. I made a choice. I became 11/6/42/058. That is a number that will stick with me, at least as far as the federal government is concerned, for the rest of my life, and I'm a convicted felon. And short of a presidential pardon, I will always be a convicted felon. So I can't change the label that is attached to me. But I can make a different set of choices that will empower me to have that second chance. As human beings, sometimes we're a bit more compassionate than we might even give ourselves credit for. People like to see success, and success comes from the choices that you make. So the second chance isn't a function of you saying to me, well, okay, I know you've done something wrong, but let me give you a second chance. You don't have the power to give me the second chance. I have the power by the choices I make to claim my second chance.
So just as responsible as we are to make the choices that put us into a bad situation initially, we're also equally responsible and have the authority to make something good come out of that.
That's absolutely correct. I had the opportunity 3 or 4 weeks ago, which was the first time, by the way, since I was released from federal prison, now some 16 or so years ago, but I had the first time to speak to a group of inmates who were 6 months from being released. And it was interesting because I saw the look in their eyes. They were in a situation where it was comfortable to them, having been in prison for a number of years, and now all of a sudden they were going out into the real world. Mm-hmm. And they were looking for hope. And where can I go to get a job, and what does society owe me? And it was like, society owes you nothing. You owe yourself making a different set of choices. Are there going to be people that will turn you down? Yeah. Everybody that applies for a job doesn't always get the job. One person selected, a number of people are turned down. Life is not about people telling you yes for some reason. Life is about the choices that you make that get you to the yes. And like I told them, they said, well, what kind of job can we get as a convicted felon? Take the job that no one else wants to do. There are plenty of people that will hire you. You may not get the sexy job or the one that you want, but if you do what other people are unwilling to do, it's amazing how quickly your choices can manifest into becoming something that truly can be significant.
Okay. Well, you also recently had some comments about what is now kind of passed out of the public eye, but the major headliner for a little while was the Michael Vick case, mm-hmm. which obviously was a large ethical conundrum.
Absolutely.
Would you like to talk about that for a little bit?
Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. You sit there and you look at Michael Vick, and here he is. He's a rising football star. I mean, got the big signing bonuses, and everybody is expecting great things from him. And on the personal side, my guess is, I haven't met Michael, so we don't know each other. We're not chicken-eating buddies, as I would put it. But on the personal side, he had, a hobby, an enjoyment, or whatever it happened to be, but dogfighting. Now, there are a lot of things that people watch. I remember as a kid watching wrestling, and you knew it was fake, but boy, there were a whole lot of people that were really caught into it, and they liked it. That was legal. What he was doing happened to be illegal. There is no doubt in my mind, never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that his career would have been dramatically altered by being a fan of, promoting, and encouraging dogfighting. But he did. And every choice has a consequence. So you can't ever ignore the consequences of the choices we make. The problem is so often we'll get into the habit of making a series of choices, and there doesn't seem to be an immediate consequence. And you got to know in Michael Vick's case, he'd been doing this for years. That was just kind of a side thing that he found some joy in. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, well, that's terrible and horrendous, but it's reality. Right. So that was something he'd done. He never had been there. There's never been a negative consequence from it. So he couldn't quite see past the illusion that something that illegal but seemingly had no consequence could ever have the impact that it did. Yet, it cost him his career, sent him to Leavenworth, changed him, and even today there are people, and I experience this as well, who once out of prison, Michael might say, well, I want to do something to make things right, and people will continually judge him, probably for the rest of his life, that, well, he was that bad guy who did terrible things to dogs and so forth. Now, are there probably things worse than what he did? Yes, but he happened to be a well-known figure, and choices have consequences.
So now, ethical choices, business growth, all of those things, do ethics pay off in the long run?
Absolutely they do. It's easy to say. It's harder to experience at the time. But the reality is, and I'm going to go back to a comment that I made just a little earlier. I was speaking to an international construction company, and they said they had won an award for a construction project for a municipality. It was a 6-0 vote. The city council said yes, and they were ecstatic. This was great. They won the bid, unanimous. And then they were called in by the city manager. The city manager said, okay, you won the bid, now we need $50,000. Payoff. And the company was an ethical company, and they said, I'm sorry, we don't do business that way. City manager said, we do. Well, gee, we're sorry. Next thing you know, they did not win the award. It was given to someone else who was willing to pay. Now the question was, well, what was the cost? The immediate cost of positive ethics was loss of business, loss of revenue, and they weren't having a celebration. But in the long run, two things happened. One was ultimately the city manager and the people that were involved in the payola scheme were uncovered, discovered, and some of them now are in prison. And the company that paid it has been disgraced and banned from being able to do any future business. So do business ethics pay off? Yes, in the long run. In the short run, there may be some unintended consequences, and sometimes you have to be willing to accept the pain of, I say pain, but the pain of run. The right thing will yield a set of consequences that are positive.
Well, I think that's reassuring to hear for a lot of people. You know, obviously doing something that's easy more often than not pays off in the short term, but, well, like you've shown, the consequences come in later than not.
Well, that's the problem. You never really know when the consequence is going to hit. So if you do something wrong and there's not a problem, and you do something wrong and there's no consequence, and you do something wrong and there's no consequence, you begin to believe there's no consequence. When in reality, there is always a consequence. And more times than not, if the consequence isn't quick, then the pain of the consequence becomes substantially greater at a later point.
Okay. So would you have any final message that you would like to put out there in relation to your past experiences and what you've been talking about since you've gotten out of prison?
Well, I think in 1996 when I got out, I wasn't really sure where life would take me, but I made the commitment that I would make a more empowering set of choices and trust that there would be a positive outcome. And now it's 2000, and that's 14 years later, and the reality is that has absolutely been borne true. And hopefully I will be able to continue living my life to exemplify that.
Well, I think we all hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you. Flipper, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Hey, it was a pleasure having you here. Well, we'll be back up in just a minute to wrap up Directions Northeast.
I've had a great experience at Northeast State. It has a lot to do with my teachers. They really set you up to succeed.
The cardiovascular technology program is one of 23 accredited programs in the United States. We have standards that are higher than other programs that we must meet.
With a new building and bigger facilities, it will enhance every student's experience.
The Regional Center for Health Professions located in the new Kingsport Academic Village houses all Northeast State's health-related programs. Northeast State, we're here to get you there.
And that concludes the program for today. We've learned more about the process and importance of ethics in our lives and the importance of the choices that we make. Again, I'd like to thank our guest motivational speaker, Mr. Chuck Gallagher. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. We encourage you to get out and explore the natural beauty of our region and be aware of all the issues concerning your community. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Northeast State Community College, I'm Flipper Derland, and this is Direction Northeast.